si es que está la gente volviendo. Ay. Vale, vale. Sin problema. Hola. ¿Sí?
Hello. Good afternoon. Good afternoon to you all. So we all know this is a very complicated, this is a very difficult time because, well, we've drunk too much wine. Well, so maybe we can make it work. So we're going to keep on talking about technologies and advances that disrupt. And now we have another trending topic on the table, which is somehow related to machine learning, which is a trending topic. Another trending topic is everything related to quantum. So that's why we have invited Alba Cervera. You've seen her background, her studies. She's a young promise and one of the promising youth in Spain. She got her PhD in July, end of June. She studied physics, university, and master's in astrophysics. And your thesis with cum laude mark was about physics particles, or particle physics, sorry, and then quantum physics and physical computation or physical computing. So it was like a melting pot of different things. Yeah, that's usually what happens when you do a pitch thesis. We'll know it. So we decided to invite her because beside her background and her magnificent studies, she is a woman scientist and she is now in vogue and she's very promising, as I said. She's young, she's a woman, she's Spanish, and she'll be one of the protagonists of the 10-15 years to come. So among other things, that's one of the main reasons to have her here. And because we want her to talk about why quantic physics is a reality, what's the future for it, and the practical uses, practical realizations of it. practical for the society. Because this is what really this is about, finding things to do with technology. So I'd like you to define quantum computing, how you see it. Well, I could make a summary of what quantum computing is. We're not able to do all the calculations we need in our daily lives. We cannot do it just with just our mind. So we needed to make up different devices in order to help us with the calculations. For example, abacus are the computers, and the same goes for the rest of the world, the microscopic world, atoms and bacteria, molecules that are organized by different physical properties. So we decided to use those physical properties in order to do calculations, in order to do computing. In the same way, we use the computer components in order to do calculations. We do calculations with physical, biological entities. This was an idea that was born in the 80s, but from a more theoretical point of view. Richard Feynman, who won the Nobel Prize, said that if we are to understand the microscopic world, the bacteria, the molecules, and in order to put them in a computer would need many years to try and get that information from them. So we could use the quantum world, the quantic world, in order to try and simulate the quantic world itself. So we could create a quantic computer. But it was a theoretical idea because the technology in the 80s didn't make it possible for the scientists to manufacture such a computer. But in the 90s, there was an application that linked the theoretical with the practical world, which is called factorization. Factorization, for example, means that 15 is 3 times 5. That is called factoring. But everything revolves around factoring. Banking devices, cryptography, social media, and deciphering, the crypting, so splitting a number in its factors, it's very simple. And Peter Short in the 90s created an algorithm that was quantic that could do the factoring in a very efficient way. So that was the first real-world application that made quantic computing a reality. But still, we didn't have that quantic computer at that time. And then in the year 2000, around the year 2000, the first quantic computers were created in 2007. The first companies to commercialize, to market those computers were born. So the quantic computers nowadays are prototypes. IBM, Microsoft, and Intel and other companies are creating prototypes because the quantic computers now are small quantic computers. They are similar to a normal computer. But there is something called the quantic edge or the quantic supremacy. Once we'll have 50 cubic big quantic computers, 50 qubits will be enough for an algorithm to run in those computers. That won't be able to run in normal computers. So we are doing experiments and testing those computers. We're working with near intermediate scale quantic computing. We're testing things with them. They're very noisy and very cumbersome. But we keep on testing them, and now more and more algorithms based on quantum physics can use the best of a normal computer and the best of a quantum computer, and it works. So it's like mixing a normal computer with a quantum computer in order to try and do practical things. So in a few years' time, we'll be able to have interesting things with them. For example, for chemistry, to study small particles that need many calculations, with a quantum computer, it will be more natural to simulate them and to understand them. And that way we could create new drugs, new materials. So that's something that we will probably be doing in the future. So everything we've done in the computer world, hardware and software, is based in algorithms that has been developed for the type of computers we use nowadays. So it's somehow limited by the famous Murphy law. But when you face the quantum dimensions, they are no longer valid or useful. So I think it was in the 1990s, 1995, when there was a paper and a new computer was born. But then a lot of work is needed now in order to change the set of algorithms, because most scientists and IT experts know the algorithms that are used nowadays. All the mathematics we have used for elliptic functions and things like that will be obsolete once we start using the quantum physics. Yes, quantum computing is like starting from scratch again in computing. So it's a new paradigm. It's not the continuation of what we've been doing so far. So this is an idea that was born many decades ago, but has always remained in the theoretical world. So it's like it has stayed there just for the physicists. Yeah, and after the short algorithm, the people studying computer sciences and on other types of computing are having an interest in them because they see it's useful. When I say quantum computer, what is quantum is the hardware, but then the software is a normal software. For example, from Python is being developed by normal companies, by normal people, developers, researchers, the community, and it is basically open source, so everyone can contribute to it. And we're even using software created by big companies such as Google or IBM. So it's like a blend of people from many communities, the physicists, the big quantities, the theorists, people who are studying computer science, and people who program the interfaces. But for example, we are approached by chemists who have a problem that cannot solve, and maybe with a quantum algorithm we can solve it, or people who work in the banking industry or in finance that might benefit from the use of quantum algorithms. So it's people coming from everywhere, from all walks of life, all industries, and it is expanding, is going viral. And we used to know each other because there weren't too many people, but now more and more people are approaching us because they see the incredible amount of applications it can have in the future. It's like when back in the 50s, computer science degree did not exist. It was mathematicians, physicists, and engineers who developed computers until the point in time when the first IT experts graduated. When I was in third year in my degree, I did my degree in Barcelona, and there was a new subject that was introduced in my degree when the Bologna process came through, and it was called quantum computing. So I enrolled in it, and it was just a few people. Now it's over 50 people in the waiting list to try and enroll in that subject. So now it's many people are interested in studying those things, and I enjoyed it a lot, and I enjoy myself a lot working in this because you see many breakthroughs from time to time. Every week, every month, you hear about someone in Peking, in Beijing, sorry, who has done something that is really a major breakthrough. So yes, now people know what a data engineer is, what a data scientist is. So there's new professions coming up. The same will go for machine learning and artificial intelligence, new professions that have been born with all these breakthroughs. And now we have to see yet the practical uses of it, of that quantic application, that quantic computing, which is just one branch of the quantic physics. There's also quantic photography, quantic sensors. So quantic is everywhere. The radiology is also quantic. The semiconductors, GPS, transistors. So this is just the beginning of it. Theoretically, it is quite advanced because we've been working on it from a theoretical point of view for a long time, but from an experimental point of view, it's just the last few years. Because in order to get a quantum computer, you need a quantum hardware. So we still don't know which one of the technologies will be best suited for us. So that's why I say it's just been born, because we don't know what the technology will be like for the quantum PCs in the future. So this is the beginning of it. This is like the childhood of the quantum computing. And we have to be optimistic and think that we are gonna be able to do it. I'm not saying that in 10 or 15 years' time we'll see some practical applications or maybe how to solve a problem. I'm not saying it's going to be a revolution yet, but because in order for us to be able to have a full quantum computing, we need to wait a little bit more. We need to be honest. We cannot make promises that we won't be able to keep, because of course all the funding we get is based on the promises we can keep, because otherwise they're gonna give us funding based on the promises or the achievements we somehow guaranteed to get, and it's not possible. But the prototypes is really based on the Moore's laws, because we are sizing them up and we're doubling the size every year. So this is the technology for the future, but we don't know yet when it will be a full reality. And this is now the time to lay the foundation for it. Yes? You have more than 10 minutes left. No, don't worry. But I have a really freaky question, and I cannot hold myself. Quantum computing combined with artificial intelligence, can it become a Skynet? Maybe we can call it quiet. Can it really be a reality? Yet there is a whole trend of finding cool names for everything quantum. Naming is the thing, but they're not very original because there's always something with Q. It has to start with Q. Yeah, all the names are taken. Cubata might work. Cubata cubata is a Spanish word for a drink. For example, we need to talk about ethics in artificial intelligence. Skynet is someone that has programmed Skynet, which is a mean robot. No, Skynet is Skynet is aware of itself, becomes aware of itself, and it says, "Well, you're all dumbers, you're bastards, and I have to destroy you." Well, this is quite philosophical, and he said it was a freaky question. It's about ethics, the ethics of the artificial intelligence. We can really elaborate on that later because I have many views about it and my own opinion. But quantum computing means developing a special type of computing. So if you ask me what can you use a computer for, for many things depending on who develops it. So that's why it is important to be patient, and instead of asking when are we going to have it, maybe we should be able to ask who will be doing it, a government, a university, a private person, because that will be important. Someone will do it, and they might be carried away and do something bad. Well, a quantum computer is not the computer we might think of. The concept of a quantum computer might be completely different from what we think. Well, it's a calculating tool. But maybe the physical image of a quantum computer is not the physical image we have of a standard computer. But now laptops, for example, well, yes, we all have the image of a laptop. But in companies, there are big computers that are not physical, they're in the cloud. The supercomputers are in the cloud, and you don't need a physical laptop to use it. And maybe, well, I don't know, maybe in 10 years' time we'll all have a quantum computer at home, I don't know. But in my opinion, a quantum computer will be used for research purposes, the same way that we don't need a computer anymore to check our inbox. We can use a mobile phone. So I think the supercomputers, the super quantum computers in the future will be hosted in the cloud. Rigetti and IBM are now offering you supercomputers that are hosted in the cloud. You can use an algorithm. They do the computing, the calculation in their servers, and then they give you the results. So you don't need a computer anymore in order to do that calculation. So I think we will be able to use quantum computers, just for example, the Mare Nostrum in Barcelona, and you don't need to own it or to have it physically at home. You can use it from the cloud. It's like in artificial intelligence when you need to train big neural networks, big neural nets remotely. And there will be hybrids between a normal computer and quantum computers. Part of the coding is done in a standard computer, and the rest of it is run on simulator. So instead of buying CPUs and screens, you will be able to buy qubits and tokens, such as the IBM computer. You buy a token and you get some limited time for calculations. As the rumor has it that you might be able to use qubits on one side and then use other things by paying extra. I was talking to her recently, and she said, "Well, I was listening to a radio station called Radio 3, and there was someone who was trying to explain quantum computing for dummies, and he said, well, it's like we meet up and we need to drink 30 beers, and it might be that you drink 10 beers and I drink 20, or you drink nothing and I drink 30. So that's the same thing. It's the same for computing. You might be a 0 or a 1. So it must be you might be an almost 0 and I might be an almost 1, but we know that we have to be 0 or 1. It's the same thing. I used to explain it with colors. I think I was less original. So, well, you can look for it. It's called Ciencia a Bocajarro. It's one of the sections it's one of the programs in Radio 3. So we need to get to the gist of the topic, and he has not improvised the question about Skynet. He had prepared it beforehand. So in my opinion, this is an opportunity for the industry, for the scientific world, for research and development. Someone mentioned Cotec earlier. I cannot see her now. But what we know what the problem is. You do a computer, you do it for yourself. You work at the University of Barcelona. Some other people work at in other universities. But what is the current situation of the research world in Spain? I don't know if you have encountered any difficulties in pursuing your research career, because now you live in Spain, you're quitting, and you will be joining a foreign university, and we know why. Well, the first years I was doing my PhD, I didn't get any money. I applied for grants and scholarships, but I didn't get them because there were many of us and we all had good ideas. But anyway, I stayed. I did my PhD because I was living with my parents in Barcelona, so I didn't need to spend more money. But I wanted to do it. I wanted to do my PhD, and I thought to myself, I'm going to try. And then the first year, I got the opportunity to go to Oxford, and it was a coincidence. It wasn't a scholarship. It was a researcher, a Spanish researcher, that said, well, if you come to Oxford, if you don't have a scholarship, you can come to Oxford and I can pay you something. And I said, oh my God, I'm going to Oxford. It's like the cradle of the modern knowledge now. I know nothing, but I'm going to Oxford. And well, once you get there, you see there are many, many Spaniards and people from everywhere, and there's a little bit of everything. The good side of Oxford is that there is a lot of money. There's a lot of money, but in Spain we have brilliant people. We have very knowledgeable people, very many experts, but we lack the money. So when I went back to Barcelona, I realized that we don't lack talent or brilliance, we lack money. So I wanted to create in the BSc a group of talents working in quantum physics. So in the 2 last years, it was the first time I really started to earn money with the work I was doing. I was earning money for the first time in my life. But I couldn't quit my parents' house because, well, Barcelona is very expensive, you know. So now I am moving to Canada. I want to go to Toronto, but I wanted to go. I wanted to go abroad because I think it's important for any researcher to live abroad and to do some work abroad. But my greatest fear is that I don't know if I will be able to come back to Spain. And I want to come back. And I think we should be able to come back because there are many initiatives in Spain, yes, but only because people are very enthusiastic about them and they do it. The institutions are not supporting them. Institutions are not really encouraging it. So we need more support and money from the institutions. That's the reality. So I'm glad to see that the ecosystem is growing up, is growing, especially in Barcelona. We all know each other because it's very few people. So there is a lot of exchange between the Spanish universities, between Seville, Granada, Madrid, and Barcelona. And companies are being created, many startups. A Boston startup is opening a branch in Europe, in Barcelona. You can create spin-offs. Don't you think? Yes. It's been only 2 years, but Barcelona company, a new company in Barcelona is Kilimanjaro. It's being created by colleagues of mine, people from the Autonomous University Barcelona, the academia, and they are researchers in those universities. They are locals. So it's great to see that that's a great achievement to have them there. And because they are endorsed by an institution, which is the University of Barcelona, so that they will attract the implication, the involvement of the public institutions. Well, you know, Jorge has grabbed the microphone, so that means it's time for questions. Hi. I want you to take a bold step. When do you think we will be able to make it a revolution? Well, I don't know, and you're talking about cryptography, and well, I think the problem with cryptography is that when we will be able to decipher it and to make it a revolution, we won't need it anymore. Because if you really want to decipher something that is complicated, you need a quantum computer of millions and millions and millions of qubits. So we need a lot of time. But meanwhile, of course, we're not stupid. And since we know that this is going to be a reality, even if it's in 30 years' time, the cryptography systems are being changed so that the new algorithm, if it comes, won't be able to crack it. So we can change the coding, the cryptography methods, or we can use quantum cryptography. So we won't need RSA or anything else or anything like that. But of course, if we use a new algorithm, if it's not a quantum algorithm, can be cracked by a new quantum algorithm. So there's always a risk, but there's always a risk everywhere because you don't know if there is a mysterious mathematician that is cracking code now. So this is the risk of cryptography always. Yes, because it is based in a type of algorithms that is based 30 years ago, that was created 30 years ago. So people think that quantum computers will be able to crack the algorithms now. No, when there will be quantum computers in the future, the algorithms will be also quantum-like. So everything will be up to the standards. That's my opinion.
Al hilo de lo que ha preguntado Jorge antes, quiero preguntarte a ti y a todos los que
To ask you, and everyone here, if you envisage the likelihood of working with at a planetary level, at a conscientious level, if you think that we can create framework of security, a security framework that can be used globally based on the ethics that we need. Well, this is the same discussion all the time, the same discussion that goes on for artificial intelligence and many other advanced fields. Ethics has to be up to date. The ethical considerations have to be taken into account all the time as technology evolves. So now we are creating like the ethical standards for what you can do and cannot do with artificial intelligence. The same has to go for quantum computer. The same goes for legal standards. They're not up to date, but we are slow. The good thing is that for quantum computing, we are aware that ethics and ethical considerations and legal standards need to be up to date. So by the time we'll get there, by the time we'll achieve something, we will be able to do it faster because we can copy what has been done in other fields. So before we get there, someone will have laid a foundation for it. It is a calculation tool, so the ethical considerations will be similar to the considerations used for machine learning and artificial intelligence. So we are hyper cautious because we have learned the lesson from other fields, and instead of promising things and being blamed for promising things, and we have learned that sometimes we cannot make things right first time. Everything revolves around the Einstein's theory that he described back in 1930 something. So we had to wait until 1956 in order to really exploit it, and then many more years in order to create a GPS. So we have learned the lesson. We are making science, but we are also making science history, and we need to meet the ethical experts and really make it evolve at the same time. Nerea mentioned it earlier. The initiatives such as Science in the Parliament are really making the effort to taking science to the policymakers so that they are closer to science, and they also try to make the society get closer to science thanks to these type of initiatives. So this was the really last questions. We have to be concise and brief so we don't get to quarrel about it. This is the very last question. Well, generally speaking, I think 1 qubit is like elevating the potency of the calculation. So maybe have you tried to do, it's like increasing the power of the computer by many times. Well, in order to create a quantum computing, you need two things. that's why I say it's exponential, because 50 qubits is theoretically possible, but physically or practically impossible, because many, we need much space. So basically what you do is you describe the whole algorithm entirely, but then you have to wait until the end of it in order to see what the result is like. Because if you stop in the middle, you stop the quantum process. So that's why I say that you need to shift the way you think. And there are many algorithms now that are quantum inspired. They're normal algorithms, but they find their inspiration, meaning they are thought differently. So there's a lot to research about it, and there's many people working in computer science and mathematics that are interested in knowing about quantum research and quantum physics, because they understand that they need to change the way they think about it in order to be ready for the future. So it's like a trap. We talk about algorithms because it's what we know now. Well, this was really the last question, so we have to stop. Just to summarize, quantum physics is still in trend, and we have young, promising researchers, and so the future is bright. Thank you.
The title of this poem is Quantum Honesty. All this universe of weird places and distance is reborn on a new ethical algorithm, daily and simulated algorithm. Hello, can you hear me? Thanks for being here. This is a tough part of the day, but we always save the best for the end. We are here with César García. He's a technical systems engineer. He's worked for the Madrid Council. He's been awarded with many innovation awards. And above all, he's a maker, and he's the chair of Make Space Madrid. A maker is a word we don't tend to use a lot in this country, although in this event we are fortunate to have many people who do many things, but it would be great to have more people like you. We had a very interesting discussion last night, and I delved into a passionate world I didn't know anything about. During the lunch break, we talked about the Internet of Things, but we don't tend to speak a lot about the good things that we can achieve through the Internet of Things. So please tell us, what is a maker and why did you take that path? A maker and comes from to make in English, and it's related to people who use technology in a creative way. They may use technology to make their projects a reality. We've heard many examples today. Arduino is also another example related to computers. But we also tend to combine this or to blend this with digital manufacturing techniques. When we create an object, we don't only have the processor or the instructions, but also the hardware and the programming part. People who come from the makers world, or people you find in makers spaces, are people who are eager to implement their projects, and they tend to come from very random places, from all walks of life. People who started studying chemistry and now they're doing fashion, or they started with biology, now they're using it for something completely unexpected. How do you start it? How do you start? How did you decide to go down that path? Well, when I was a kid, I was all the time doing things with my Spectrum computer, with the cassettes, if you remember them. And about 10 years ago, when I was working as an informatician, I met the people from Arduino, and I wanted to explore technology again in a different way. I wanted to test new things. This ability to connect computers with to the physical world in a simple way is what really caught me. I forgot to tell you that Thesa's got a podcast and a Twitter account where he tells us about everything he does. So if you want to look into this a little bit more, you can follow him on the social media. There is a lot of information in English, but not that much in Spanish, actually. So if you go to fora to find information, you will find that most of it is in English and very little in Spanish. Many things are going on in this country, and it would be a great idea to push it. So if no one is doing it, I will do it. I will make it. How did Make Space Madrid come about? Well, we are a non-profit that started 7 years ago. We are in Medialab Prado, facilities in Madrid, public facilities, where people get together to work on projects. And that's where we started working with Arduino, and we wanted to apply it to something. We started developing things to use it, to use sensors for air quality, so people could collect data from home. And then discussing this with other groups, 5, 6 other groups came about as well, such as one that was dealing with radiation, such as Fukushima and so on. So we realized that we needed to have a space in order to move forward swiftly. We realized that many of us were getting together, and we wanted to create a new space. So we brought people together in it was not a theater, but it was a space, a venue in Madrid, because we realized that we needed that infrastructure in Madrid for people to come over and make their projects come true. And this is how we started. And it's been 7 years so far. Do you also have a pizza and beer there? Well, we do have a little bit of everything, because it's a living space. There are between 70 and 80 people, and we want to have a useful and enabling environment for people to do their stuff, but not only to use the tools, but we also we believe that the social component is very important. Discussing with others and sharing ideas and finding links with each other is very interesting. What types of projects do you usually have in that space, in the Madrid Espacio? It is quite interesting. From as far as I'm concerned, I think that the fact that many different people get together is great. We have people interested in soft circuits, such as fabric circuits. Some others are entrepreneurs running projects on the Internet of Things, for instance. There's retired people who do not want to go to the bar and play cards at the pub or play darts. They have probably been working on electronics for 30 years and they want to keep up with the new things. So we've had people ranging 16 to 70. And serendipity comes up sometimes. And sometimes people get together and decide to make a living out of it. We talked about one of the examples yesterday, which is Most for All. Two people who had been working in the same company. They have seen each other many times in different meetings, and they met again after working in that place, and they decided to launch a joint project for a small device that's connected to tablets or Android smartphones, and people with mobility impairments. It helps them in their daily life, because sometimes they have they suffer from the digital divide, and this is a tool that helps them. They started with the first prototypes, and obviously this is not a factory, so when your project grows bigger, then you need to find another place to further develop it. But it's the right place to make the first steps and to help people own the technology. So that's one of the different uses of that space, to help people in their daily lives, especially in health issues. But there are other projects regarding public health. There are in Make Space. People come with their projects. We don't have a master line to tell people, or guidelines telling people what they need to do. People just go there to connect to other people and carry out their projects. Regarding the health, one of the interesting projects we had is Theapat, one of the elderly people support center. They told us about a very interesting project, and we don't know what the project's about, but they told us that it's very interesting, and they don't know how to implement it. We don't know yet, but we went to the facilities. They explained their problems they had regarding mobility, and two people there went to one of those shops where you can find everything. They bought random things to build their thing. But at the end of the day, they learned to model those pieces with a 3D printer to adapt them better to the user's lives. The interesting thing is that we don't only tell them how the printer works, but also how to share their projects with other people. And we had the hope that they would share it. There is a website called Thingiverse where there are 30 designs available, where people can use that 3D design and they can print it at home. They don't need to travel to Madrid and buy it. Well, they can just print it at home or have it printed somewhere else. So new designs that can be shared are created, and that's great. Okay, so you make them more independent. You help them be empowered. That's very powerful. There is another project called Breakers. Can you tell us about it? Breakers came about with the idea to teach or to train people on digital manufacturing. We wanted to convey everything we've learned over the years to the younger generation. We were trying to have a new way of working, and we created the Breakers program, which is a training programs, 40 hours a week for vulnerable people in a vulnerable situation. And we tell them how to design, how to print, and it's often people who have never used a computer in their lives. It's amazing that some people have never used a computer in their lives and they just attend there and you can help them. It is very unexpected. Sometimes you see a 3D printer and you think it makes sense because it's a Cartesian axis with an x-axis and a z-axis, and other people do not understand how. So it's also about things we take for granted, and then you realize that there is a lot of work behind. Another thing we deem key is not to focus on technical aspects, but also on how to implement what they learned, because that would make young people stay. We work with shelters, and the challenge for people living in shelters is to make them stay. Sometimes they think it's boring and they want to leave and do other things, and someday they stop coming, and you understand that they decide to quit. So we wanted to keep them in, and we wanted to work with different skills applied to something specific. Breakers is a program that was started in Madrid and somewhere close to Barcelona. And there are many places in Madrid, Barcelona, Bilbao, Seville right now, where we all had the same way of planning the project, but when it came to implementing them, they needed to connect to someone or something around them in order to meet a need, an actual need around them. And that was very interesting for them because they could feel useful. They stopped being the troublesome young people in the neighborhood. They became people who could do something in their community. One of the projects they did was all the Christmas decoration for the University of Seville, and they worked on it. And the students of architecture in the architecture school loved it. So the people who did it showed off in front of everyone. And when they realized who had done it, they thought it was awesome. It was people who had dropped out, and they turned out to be very creative and very able and very willing. So, there are many examples like that in Make Space. Some participants of one of the latest editions got in touch with an urban garden to tell them how they could help, and they created they used the laser cutter to do the signaling and to create signal boards. This is just an example on how technology can be used for our daily purposes. In Castelldefels, for instance, they created a kayak, a sea kayak adapted for disabled people. So that's not something you would use in Madrid. And the beautiful thing about this is that it can be adapted to the framework or to the setting you're in. Yesterday you said something quite interesting. These young people are very lucky because there is not a lot of training about this in Spain. Yeah, and next month I've been studying this lately because young people tend to like everything, absolutely everything. The problem is how can they make a living, or that they are living with their parents, they want to move out, or they want to. So that's a key thing for them. When we analyzed the vocational training situation in Spain, we realized that except for the Basque Country, this is not something that's been discussed about. In the Basque Country, they do deal with this a little bit more, and we will see more and more in the next few years, and it will be introduced as new tools for small-scale prototypes or to manufacture things like in the Basque Country. There is a lot of metal manufacturing places. And it's precisely there that we're going to start working. Sometimes we're not aware of all the different uses we can have of this. Yes, at the end of the day, technology is a broad range of different uses. And technology can help make a difference when it comes to joining the work market. We have seen some success cases of young people who finish their study and end up working with something related. And you wouldn't think that's high technology, but it is. Decathlon, for instance, they have a teacher customization service. This is about vectoring design. People come up with an image, and then you have to do the vectoring and do vinyl cut, and you have to scale it and customize it. And it doesn't seem to be that, but it's actually what they had studied. And that could be quite useful for young people. So before we move on to the questions, could you please tell us very briefly about what you did in prisons, the inmates? Related to what we said about breakers, Yolanda suggested to participate in a European project called 3D Jail. 3D Jail is a project for inmates. In Italy, there is a Botica Solidaria, an Italian initiative where inmates sell their things they make to make money and support their family. So we decided to find a way to collaborate and do something like that. What would the inmate need to learn? How could they use it? People wonder, are they going to use knives inside in jail? Well, that got us thinking about the limitations and about the possible problems. But if you have the appropriate setting, you can help them join again the labor market. Was it a good experience? It was, definitely. Hello, Manuel, because you collaborated a lot. I don't know whether you're watching, but it's been very useful. Any questions from the audience? Well, his face rings a bell. I think he was here before. I got lots of questions, but one question that just came up. You were speaking about the new possibilities for new jobs, but I was also thinking of something stupid that happened to me at work. People needed some support for their laptops, and we gave them different options so that they could buy in Amazon or have it done by a carpenter, and they decided, they picked one that could be done with a laser cutter with the material you want. There is more and more people who want to be engaged in the manufacturing processes of the things they consume. So I wanted to ask you about this makers culture, because it seems to be changing the way we consume and the impact it might have. One of the funniest things is, well, 3 years ago, IKEA opened a space in Copenhagen called Space 10 to investigate, to do research on the future of manufacturing. There was a website called IKEA Hacks. Many people take the basic table to have their own service at home, and IKEA were a little bit pissed off because they didn't want their name on those things. There was a change. A change has happened in the past few years, and companies are actually suggesting to the opposite. It's kind of a Lego. They give you the pieces and then you put it together the way you please, and it's customized. People don't want to have the same thing all their friends have. This is a market that's very interesting, and even the companies are playing the game now. One of the challenges is a copyright. I think it was back in 2013 when Nokia, they launched their new model, and they decided to let people customize the design and print it at home. You were waiting for this, weren't you?
No será la primera vez. Entonces yo creo que es una tendencia.
I think this is a growing trend. Customization is a growing trend, and being able to customize what we have is quite interesting. This is also about skills. We think it's quite natural to use text editor, things like that, but when you are going to use a 3D printer, you need to know about materials and about the printing method and so on and so forth. There is quite a complex leap forward. In many high schools and in many centers, they have 3D printers. So people who there are many young people who are learning this from the very early stages of the training. The customization is going to be there, by all means. Any more questions? No more questions? Is that the last question? It is. Can you hear me? You said that you're studying, doing some research on the future of of work, of jobs. Could you please share with us the type of the different profiles that you foresee? Well, you can Google that. Yeah. I guess that in the future we'll see things. Well, when we did our research, we reached out to almost 80 experts. So they would tell us their demands or their needs in their workplaces. And we asked them to think of the future. And with all the information we got from different jobs with different skills, we've had a second group of experts to tell us whether that's professional, whether that job would be more or less needed. We have separated them by categories. And we are already seeing things such as robotics. Robotics are obviously clearly going to have a long life. Many of the not very skills jobs that are coming up now will die out very soon. When we ask makers about what their job is going to be in the future, they reply that they are not interested in working on that in the future. That's quite a tricky point. If you tell them, "Oh, you do 3D printing, can I ask you to do something for me?" No, 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 I don't do this as a job. This is just my hobby. So there are different roles, there are different profiles, there are different things. Many people are trying to find something new, trying to develop their tastes. There's a website where you can find Fab Labs, fablabs.io. There are 64 or 70 in Spain right now. And I would suggest you to go to the nearest Fab Lab and see what they do there. You will find new things and you will learn a lot because people go there looking forward to share things. Okay, we have run out of time, so I want to close with what you just said, that these events are great and discussing is amazing, but the important thing is to leave this place and do something. It is not about thinking how wonderful this is and then forgetting in a couple of days. Can you give us some ideas on how companies can help you? Come on, it's time to finish, but this is the more important part of it. If you want to collaborate as a company or as a group, do what Seven Trees did. Go to your local place and try to think of possible projects and see whether people are eager to do it or not, because they might not. So go out and explore. If you can go to spaces like as if you went to dancing classes, you go there every day, you see how the rhythm go, you see whether you like it, and then that's it. It's like you need to try out. This is like tango. You need to try it out. You need to dance yourself. And if your feet start moving, it means you're happy with it. So give it up for César.
Bueno, este poema lo he titulado.
Well, this poem is called Serendipity. The idea of re-exploring this space and connecting with the physical part of it, breaking the barriers of what has not been said.
Sí funciona. Me estaban preguntando aquí que dónde estamos. Pues...
Someone was asking me where we were. We are located at the Arquitectura Street in Madrid. We have an open space and open days. So if you want to know more about it, please pay attention to when we organize the open days and take a look at us.
Buenas tardes. ¿Me das aquí al micro? Ahora. Bueno, seguimos con...
Well, now is the turn of Inés Huertas. I've got a feeling with my two interviewees. So her name is Inés Huerta, but you know her Twitter account, her Twitter name is Quiero Data, I Want Data. And I can read here that you like gossiping in Twitter. Yes, I like technology, I love technology, but at the same time I like gossiping and knitting and that kind of thing. So I like, to know things about the celebrities and things like that. But everything is factoring. Well, I know Ines since 4 years and a half. She created a company called Hadadon, but that's ancient history. So you've now created, you're now in a different stage of life. When you're an entrepreneur, you do this kind of things. When we started this company, my target or my objective was to work from home in my pajamas, and I did it just for 2 weeks, no more. And I had the idea of the projects I wanted to pursue and the people I wanted to work with, but it changed. So after 5 years, I decided to do something different, and that's why I changed. So what is that you were interested for? Well, I studied computer science systems. So I had the chance to try to start administering, managing HTTP intensive calculation systems, and then I jumped to the world of big data. And it was quite competitive because compared with other solutions that were being marketed, it was very interesting because other solutions were proprietary solutions. I studied neural networks, so I started to study more about it because everything was changing very fast. Now I define myself as a data scientist, and there are many data scientists. But back then, when someone told me, "You're going to be a data scientist," I said, "You're just joking. That doesn't exist. There's no such thing as a data scientist." But yes, it is a reality now. So I started to study in an independent way by using massive online courses and by testing things. I live in the south of Madrid, and I used to go to work to the north of Madrid. So every morning I grabbed my backpack and went to work because everything was in my backpack because I knew when I was starting to work, but I never knew how or when I would stop. So instead of just getting into the rat race, into the commuting every day, and the traffic jams, someone invited me to stay over and doing data analysis. So I started to do that. I decided it was better than facing the traffic jam every day. So I joined that startup, and the services we offered were data backups and that kind of things, and a little bit of the big data. But well, we had the chance to land a new client, a big client who wanted big data. We started with 3 people, and I quit in May, and it was 15 people. We never got any funding, so it was always organic growth. And it is great because if you get funding rounds, if you get investment, it looks like you're doing a great business, but instead I think you're doing an artificial business. It is best if you can have organic growth, because sometimes you're involved in big operations and there's nothing organic there. It's artificially generated. So you get a degree. You have a degree in telecommunications in the Carlos III University. What else did you do before enrolling in this? Because I got involved in this. I used to work for the university in the Red Iris network. It is a network that connects all Spanish universities in Spain, and Carlos III is Radio Madrid is responsible for the management of that network. I also used to work for the telematics department at the Carlos III University. I was an event promoter. I was lifesaver in swimming pools. So your first job was... I used to be a safeguard.
Entonces era bastante curioso. Lo que pasa es que al final dedicabas mogollón de tiempo y no veías a tus amigos, ¿no? Porque estabas todo...
I was lifeguard for 3 months, and it was great because left me enough time, plenty of time to see my friends. And then I changed and I became an event promoter. And I want to talk positively about the event promoters because it's life full of suffering. Well, that kind of things. But then I said to myself, well, Ines, maybe you should find a job that is related to what you have studied. So that's how I decided to start working at the universities. And what about R Ladies Madrid or A Ladies Madrid? Well, Ladies is a programming language. And I used to know the Meet Labs and communities in Madrid, and there were not many people. Sorry, there were not many female programmers. And I once met as, R is a programming language. And then I met one of the other fellow programming lady, and she told me, well, there is network, there is an international network that is called All Ladies, and with people, women that program. And I said, yeah, but there's nothing like that in Spain. And she said, well, we're just going to create it ourselves because there are more female programmers. And that's how we realized there was a problem. I don't know what the problem is born or where does it come from. I can maybe think why, but there's something we need to do about it. And that's how I told this other lady, I want to take part in this. I want to get involved in this initiative. I want to develop the number of ladies that do programming. So we created it 3 years ago. It's like when you celebrate your anniversary with your partner, because I'm really enthusiastic about it. So we organized one meetup per month. One of the ladies in the group organized an introduction to the R language. But there were many people coming to these talks, to these meetups, so the atmosphere was great. So at a certain point, someone said, well, this is maybe not enough. It's okay for you to come here and say what you're working on, and talk about what you're doing, but I want to become a data scientist, and we're using test data here, but we're not using real-life data. So let's organize a hackathon. And when we decided to organize a hackathon, that was something big, and we got carried away. We were looking for sponsors and the catering. It was crazy, and we could never imagine what was going up. But anyway, we did it. We created a hackathon, and 50% of the participants were women. And we created several groups, and 50% participants being ladies. So it really created a momentum, and many male researchers and programmers were interested in participating in it. But since we needed 50% female programmers, they started to talk their female fellow programmers into it so that they could make sure that they could get a place. So the people who took part in the hackathon the projects in the hackathon used real data. And then people could put it in their CV, in their resume, and then say, hey, I have taken part in a project using real data, so this counts as a real work experience. So I wanted to talk about something that is really nice. Why are you keen on using communities? Because many people were saying to me, you're working for free. Yes, I'm doing it for free, I'm doing it pro bono, but I'm having great fun. I'm enjoying myself. In one of those hackathons, we invited Intermon Oxfam, and we used a set of data. So we also used the hackathon to invite one of the ladies working in Intermon Oxfam to talk about the organization. And we also invited other people. So the first person to talk about the personal experience was myself. And I talked about an experience that I had done, a test. I put a camera on at the Callao Square in Madrid, recording non-stop. And then we collected all the rows, all the recordings, and then I got my collaborators to tag the images. And then I created an algorithm that detected the number of people in the street with a high likelihood of accuracy. So we discovered that when there were many people, there were many buses, but when there were fewer people, there were still many buses. So we put that into a paper, and we talked about smart cities and how to regulate and how to organize the use of the resources. And then someone proposed to use satellite imaging to do the same thing. And I said, okay, that's fantastic. The police called me and said, well, there is a terrorist that goes, well, he lives in Africa, and then he goes to a hamlet and destroys a hamlet, and then everything is ravaged because people in the hamlet is very poor, so they flee as soon as they see the terrorist. But of course, it's the desert, and of course, when they reach a point in the desert that they think is okay, stable, they stop. But they stop in the middle of nowhere, middle of the desert, and we cannot find them. The NGOs there cannot find them because they are lost in the middle of the desert. So maybe we can use a tool to detect if people are settling up in a new, if they are creating a new settlement in the middle of the desert because they have run away from a hamlet that has been ravaged. So I said, okay, that's great. And we started to connect images of the desert, different places in Africa, and we started to update it. And we were looking for up-to-date images, but I couldn't find them. So then in Red Iris, the Our Ladies account in Twitter is very active, and we got the support of the NASA in Twitter. They retweeted all the tweets that we published, that we posted. And well, especially someone from one of the NASA workers. And I was aware of that. So I thought, well, he works for NASA. The NASA might have the images I need. So I wrote to him a direct message. And I thought to myself, maybe he would think that I'm a stalker. But he replied to me instead. So I started to talk about the project. And I said, we need up-to-date images, satellite images in Africa. How could I get them? And he said, we have an open data with many data, and you can get access to our pool of images. So I started to look at the API. It was sad because it was great for Europe and the United States, high-resolution images, but not for Africa. The resolution is not great. So it's very difficult to identify anything. So we had to stop the project. But 1.5 months later, NASA called me again to talk about a project with 50 people. To use data, and they asked me if I wanted to take part in it. And I thought, but of course I want to take part in a project by NASA. I want to apply for it. And then I received a message by NASA saying, I've been shortlisted, but please don't say anything. Keep it secret. Yeah, oh my God, how can I keep it secret? But they insisted, don't say anything, keep it secret, because we want to do a public announcement, public joint announcement. So I kept it secret, I kept it a secret, and even if people asked me, I was quiet and silent. So I went to Washington. I stayed a few years with people, data scientists, astronauts working for NASA. We got an overview by people qualified in biology, not people qualified in data, because they specialize in biology, in landslides and that kind of things that really interest them. And so they needed data experts. They do this every 6 months. So if you feel like taking part in it, just ask me later, because you might go there. So once you get there, once you get shortlisted, once you are approved, you have access to those data sets all the time, forever. So you work for NASA. Well, according to my father, I am already an astronaut. Well, look at the level of the people we have here today. People who have received awards from the King of Spain, people who work for NASA, people who work with astronauts. Any piece of advice for people who really want to follow your lead? Well, I'm very passionate about things, and that's what I like to do. When you feel you want to do something just because you want to, when you're young, there's a lot of passion. I see this a lot when I go to high schools. You see that girls are very self-exigent, are very self-conscious. They are afraid to fail. But what can you know about life when you're 16? You don't know what you can expect from life. Even if you're 19, I would say to any person aged 19, take it easy, take your time, find something that you're really passionate about. But I almost forgot to mention that you have a project that is now on wheels. Well, when I quit my last company, I decided not to ever start a company again. But, well, 3 months into it, I have changed my mind again, especially because I'm really interested in making things work for people. So I met a guy that has patented a wheeling system that can move sideways and in many different directions. And it's like when you want to park sideways. And we want to apply that wheeling system to a wheelchair, so that people can really become more independent and move around. We're trying to make it a reality and get it to hospitals. What would you do if you got 1 million euros? Would you spend it in one of your projects, in maybe another project you can think of? Well, I'm a data dreamer. If you give me 1 million euros, God knows what I can do. But probably something about biomedicine. And maybe projects for the elderly, because we do have a lot of technology, and we need to apply that technology in this country, a country where people are aging fast. We have many aging people, we have many elderly people. We have a panic button, and that's a great breakthrough. But maybe we could create I don't know, maybe a tool, a device that can talk to people and interact with the elderly and ask them, have you taken your pills yet? One of your role models, one of the models, one of the women you admire, Queen Elizabeth the Catholic. Why? Because she was an entrepreneur. She sent Christopher Columbus to find America and India. And she was one of the first women to really stand up to her husband. And she was a really good strategist and did many, many things, many enterprises. Any mentor you remember? Yes, when I started university, I was a dummy. I was a programming dummy. I didn't know anything about technology or programming. I didn't know anything about what I was getting into. But the telematic department of the Carlos III University is great, so I became a pro. And there I met my first boss, Gregorio. And every time I have a problem, I think to myself, what would Gregorio do? When I created my company, I tried to hire him. I told him, I need you. I need people like you. We've worked together. And he said to me, I'm going to say no to you because you're hiring so many people from your own environment that as soon as you have a problem, as soon as you encounter a problem, you won't have anybody to talk about it. So he was giving me a piece of advice even when saying no to me. Which one of your achievements you feel most proud of? Hiring my father. My father was unemployed. A long-standing unemployed, so I felt proud to give him a job.
¿Alguna pregunta?
Any questions from the audience? That was Jorge. Questions for Ines? Easy questions, please. Hi, Ines. I loved your talk. I am gossipy too, so I like you. Well, I wanted to ask you the project with the terrorist and the NASA. So what happened? The images that you got from the NASA were not useful to you. So the images of Africa were not good, and they're not working on trying to improve the images. Well, I have never talked to NASA on behalf of Intermon Oxfam. So I cannot ask them to improve the pictures they get, because I am just a mediator. I'm just a third party. We also tried to do a similar project with refugees. And so we didn't get any pictures from satellites, and we tried to get them elsewhere, but we were afraid that we might get a call from the police or someone else at home. NASA are interested in trying to fine-tune the pictures they get from specific areas in the world, in the planet, in order to prevent, to foresee landslides or hurricanes and things like that. I'd like to finish the project for the terrorists someday, but I don't know.
Igual se me acopla, es que no lo sé. este Jorge que me ha pasado aquí el doble trabajo de azafato.
Inés, simplemente comentarte el tema.
The voice recognition systems that you want to do in order to develop devices to talk to the elderly. I have been testing it with my grandmother. I have tried to reprogram Alexa so that it can talk to my grandma. I'm also trying to reprogram the telephone, the line, so that they can both interact with my grandma and recognize their voice. So when I get my 1 million euros, I want you to work with me. The power of data to change the world is something that I feel proud of. Because in the end, the power does not lie in the hands of the people who know about technology. I'm going to explain you why. Leticia is one of the coordinators of the Ladies Madrid network. She's a computation linguist, and she was studying for a public exam because she wanted to work for the government. So she joined us, and we taught them how to program in R. And, well, she then gave a talk about the emotional language in Friends, the soap opera. And there was another lady working with us, specializing in natural language programming, who talked about Leticia with her boss. That was 3 years ago, and now Leticia has joined Google. So the power lies not in the hands of people who do technology. The power lies in people who are knowledgeable about a special area. There's another friend of mine who is a lawyer that has created a program, an application, a software that analyzes the official gazette of the Spanish government and analyzes it and gets the data from it, the official journal of the Spanish government, and then extracts all the information from it and uses it for practical purposes. Last question. What would you like to do next, in the next 6 months or the next year? Well, I'd like to have 4 lives because I've always wanted to be part of a rock band. Well, but to be honest, I'd like to do something about biomedical applications. There's a whole world outside. We need legal standards, and there are many things we can do in order to, in the field of biomedicine, and that can really save lives and improve our lives. Thank you.
Y ahora, como esto es Empodera, el verso primero. Se lo vas a dedicar, ¿no?
Bueno, no me...
Espera un momento.
El título es Alpha Canis Majoris, que es la estrella que más brilla, que más brilla desde la Tierra. A ver si es que soy muy fan de ella. Big Data.
Big data. From the south, you make it happen. And organic grows. And there's no muting, there's no silence. 35 and 1,000. Are you the star?
Programa pone jam session. Me falta mi compañero de la jam session.
If you've read the agenda, you'll see that there is the last part of it. There is the jam session, And Ildefonso, my colleague, my partner in crime for this part, is Ildefonso. And Ildefonso is the one who should be here with his ham, with his ham leg. But now is you are the ones that are going to jump in here. We don't have a lot of time. We only have 3 minutes for you to tell us about your project. So I'm going to call the people who are invited for this jam or a ham session.
Por aquí, David y Arancha de Enreda, Sonia González, Pachón y su gente, José Luis de Silicon Málaga, si quiere bajar, María Gabriela de Humano también, la tengo por aquí en la lista, Anita, India Málaga, ¿estás por aquí, Anita? María Sánchez de Data Beers también, ¿no? Que hemos hablado aquí, a la alfombra roja. Colocaos, puff, los brazos ahí repartidos y multiplicados, sí, y os voy llamando. Y me falta alguien, espera a ver. Ah, y Madrid for Refugees, si también queréis contar, ¿estáis aquí? Sí, ¿no? Aquí está el micro. Hola. Bien, ¿no? ¿Más? Ah, pues venid, sí. Esto es un evento abierto, ya lo sabéis. ¿Le des que contéis vuestro proyecto en 2-3 minutos?
So please tell us about your projects in 2-3 minutes. And you can have a shout out to the world for everyone watching us through Agar News on YouTube. And you can tell them anything you want. Ines, it's your turn. Introduce yourself and tell us about your project. Okay, use the microphone, please. And you will hear a quacking after 3 minutes. Okay? Please tell us, Ines. My name is Ines, and I'm a holistic designer. Holistic design is just like quantum computing. It's a different way of thinking design. I blend the body or the visuals, the mind or the strategy, the branding, and soul, which is the inner purpose of the project, why my client is reaching out to me to do that design. So I work from that approach, from the soul, with a very unique creative process where I use meditation states. I use the body as a technique to escape the mind and enter a different mind state in order to create a design. The result of my research after several years is that these designs do not have changes. These are designs where we honestly try to channel, putting our ego aside. We want to channel what the company wants to communicate. I like this idea when he told me about it, so please explain. Go on. My name is Miguel, and I didn't think I would speak here today. I actually wanted to avoid it, but I've been given the chance, so I think it's cool. And the reason I'm here is because I'm also a volunteer in an association called Madrid for Refugees. And what we try to do is to facilitate the adaptation of refugees in Madrid or in their host society. We have different empowering activities such as cooking classes where they are the cooks, for instance, and we have a programming course. The market is demanding a lot of web programmers. So we have volunteers from the industries, and they are amazing. And we've helped them create a curriculum, and we are training as best as we can and support them in the transition. So if you want to join the project, you'll be welcome. And that's it. We can speak in the bar, in the pub. Can we see the picture of Anita? Good afternoon, my name is Dizzy Castro, and I'm very grateful for being here at this event. I'm privileged, and we've had a vast range of speakers, and I'm really proud. Like I said before, my name is Dizzy Castro, and I work for the Humano Association without H. We have three main lines of action. The first one is values for children. This is an education that should be privileged, especially with free time activities and also in very specific courses during holidays and so on. We also have a training part for social entrepreneur of any age. Actually, this is managed by Judith Montrage, and the Humanos Association has had its fifth edition of Transformando Futuro by the Malaga Enterprise Center. And finally, I manage the senior citizens area, well-being for our seniors. And I wanted to elaborate here because we are the second longest living country, or the country with the second longest lives. And if we can improve our quality of life, we will have a great improvements for the Spain of tomorrow. We are on every social media, on Twitter, Facebook, and you're welcome to follow us and collaborate if you think it's convenient. humano.org. Go ahead. My name is José Luis Iñani, and I would like to thank Empodera for this event and also the Arrabal Association for being with us at all time. I'm a member of the Silicon Malaga community, which is an entrepreneurs community, and we try to promote the creation of a technological entrepreneurship. And Malaga is a startup lab. This is actually the city where we started validating and testing our startups as a means to come up with a sustainable business models. The community gathers once a month, the last Friday of the month, during the startup night. And one of our goals is to inform all the next entrepreneurs events, and we also want to train. We provide workshops in our startup nights, and we also have discussion sessions like the next one on incubators, and we also exchange our experiences. We also want to facilitate people finding or meeting other people. We also promote private investments for startups. And we're speaking about small amounts here. There are many startups that only need 3,000 or 5,000 euros. And this is precisely what we are promoting. This is about believing, and we do believe that together we can push Malaga forward as an international benchmark on technology entrepreneurship. You can visit siliconmalaga.es. Maria Sanchez, isn't it? Go ahead, Maria. Thanks to Ciber Voluntarios for organizing this, because it's great to be here. I work at the UMA and the UNIA, and I'm here to present my community, my non-profit community framed in an international movement. You're from Madrid, you probably know it, and you're invited to an event on Thursday, which is very cool. And if you don't know about it, what we do is we hold events at a bar around a beer, and we do networking, and there are several talks on data. And Ines, your closing was great, because that's the idea, the power of data. We are doing great because we have a very cross-section approach related to macro events, journalism and social innovation. We can have one in the future in Malaga. We can have one on social innovation. And it would be great because it can be applied for many things. And on the other hand, I would like to invite you to read all of the postings and publishings we've had on our events, because we publish everything. Everything is open and transparent, and you can attend or you can read everything online. You can see our presentations and all the materials used. We started in 2015, and in mlg.com, database mlg.com, you'll find all the information. And finally, and this is related to today's topic, on the 30th of September, we're going to hold an event in Malaga as part of a Transparency Congress on data transparency and good governance. So you're all invited, and please join us, and you need to experience this. This is like a tango, like someone said before. Two minutes. My name is Alicia, and our project is called Malaga is Worldwide. We are a TV program that's broadcasted throughout the Malaga city and region, and also on the other side of the ocean, because it can be watched in Argentina. Why are we here? Well, we deal with three main topics: tourism, culture, and gastronomy. In our program, we have a section on the Sustainable Development Goals, because we think it's important for consumers or for our audience to commit or to be engaged with the SDGs. And it's important that they commit to sustainability and consumption, and it takes 3 weeks. And well, our program has been running for 1.5 years. At the regional level, we are well known. We attend every event related to these three topics, and we have reports and interviews to important people, entrepreneurs, etc. My colleague is Alex, this guy recording me right now, filming. He's a producer. He came up with the idea, and today we have filmed some of the speakers, and we're going to throw those interviews. We're going to post those interviews on our YouTube channel. You type YouTube/C/Malaga is Mundial, and there you'll see everything. I would like to thank the organizers for the opportunity to be here and to be able to have the interviews. We are happy to see so much entrepreneurship. So that's it. That's all from me. Time's over. Thumbs up. To you, Arantxa and David. First of all, thank you very much. Thanks to the organizers for giving us this opportunity and this framework. My name is Arantxa, like I said, and here's David from the Enreda Co-op. We've been working for 12 years, bringing together technology and social transformation processes. This is our framework, our background. I wanted to present the next project, which is called Open ODS, which is related to the 17 Sustainable Development Goals as part of the Agenda 2030 of the United Nations. The idea to open the SDGs came because every country has their goals, but there are also to be targets in every region at a smaller level, and companies also need to also have their targets. And we have realized that nationally the goals are managed quite efficiently, as you can read on the UN website. But if you scale down, it is very complicated, and the targets for a city or for a university, or what Malaga is doing and where they're heading, is more difficult to find out about. And the solution to that problem, where there are many people creating information that needs to be managed in a comprehensive way, the most efficient way to do it is by using the open data philosophy. And this is how we came up with the idea to create portals with all this information. And I'll tell you how it works. There are different legs. First of all is the visualization. Every SDG, every organization working with the SDG can visualize or monitor everything that's being done and how every target is being worked upon. And you can use indicators to see how everyone is doing. You can use the UN indicators, but also all the indicators or metrics that you can use yourself. Is that it? So, to sum up, we want to use the data force to transform the world. Anita, it's your turn. Let the world know about Anita's projects. Shall I say it in English first? Say it in Malagan. So, good afternoon, everyone, or good evening. My name is Anita Toraran, and it's a pleasure for me to meet you all with this edition of Empodera 2019. I will describe in a few words the new project. A new name has been launched, Anita India Malaga. This is a new corporation, is the name that belongs to a multi-branding institution which will offer diversity of products, service, information, national and international commerce, tourism, cultural art, culinary or cooking art, entertainment, and we hope to scale this up. This project is not only interchange of both countries, such as India and Spain. We want to reach out other countries. This project fulfills at all levels or meets the commitment and it has the responsibility to be responsible, and I hope for all members to be, or I wish a lot of success to all members. Thank you and good evening.
Ya lo has traducido al inglés, ¿no?
If you want to repeat this in English, it's recorded. Yes?
Vale. A very good evening to all at this event. My name is Anita Tolaram, and it is a pleasure to meet you all in this edition of Empodera Live 2019. I will describe in a few words our new project. A new name has been launched very recently, Anita India Malaga. This is our new corporation. It is the name that belongs to a multi-branding institution which will offer a diversity of products: service, formation, national, international commerce, tourism, cultural art, culinary art, entertainment, and we hope the scale of products will grow even more. This project not only is the interchange of both countries, such as India and Spain, but also will reach to other countries in the near future. This project fulfills at all levels with the compromise of keeping a well-structured program with our environment. Its role is to establish an eco-green sustainability. Well, this was our first presentation. Wish all the members a huge success with their projects. Thank you and wish you all a very good evening.
Gracias. Una invitada más. Adelante.
Hello. My name is Trinidad. And I'm here to say just a couple of things. One, I'm volunteering for Nessie, and we've had our second event on the new economies this year. But actually, what I'm here for is to tell you about something that's going on in Malaga and something that's making me become an activist. That's the Malaga Partnership for the Climate and Ecological Emergence. We are speaking about SDGs a lot, and in this case specifically, we're speaking about SDG number 17. This is happening in the next week. We are going to have mobilizations here in Malaga. We're going to see everything that's going on related to the sea and the cleaning of the property. The university on the 25th, on Friday 25th, we're going to have workshops for the scientist community, and we are getting information on the devastating effects that we could have in the next years. And there is a global strike also. There's a global strike for the climate, and you're welcome to join us, to join this strike, because the goal, and we've had a representative of the City Council, and we want those bodies to take actions, and the citizens are the ones to demand that action, because the Council and the scientists are giving us information which are transparent and published, and when we ask them why things are happening, they reply that they don't even know, haven't even read it. So in moments and right now, you can type Alianza Malagueña por la Emergencia Climática y Ecológica. You can type it, and this is precisely what all this is about. So you're welcome. And we finish here. Thank you. Come up to the front, be under the limelight. Evening, everyone. My name is Marco Martinez, and I'm the promoter of Clean Sports, an app, a mobile app. With this app, we can easily locate recycling points or specialized recycling points or containers where you can take all the waste that's generated every day, such as engine used oil, batteries, or coffee capsules. And I'm going to show you the app. This is the app. This is how it looks like. It's very simple. You just click on your province and your city or town, then you select the waste you wanted to recycle, and then you will have a map with every point where you can have this. So this is available on Google and also on iOS. And also this is a social app because users can add new points, new spots. And finally, the goal of this project is to promote recycling. And for that, we have two lines of action. One, we cooperate with public entities managing clean points. And we want to promote the use of this app among the citizens, so more of them can use it. And it can also be used by the council, and they can let us know when the lorry, the furniture collecting lorry is coming to our neighborhoods and things like that. We're also trying to find partners and private partners, because it's usually private companies placing their containers over the city. And that's it. Thank you. Very subtle. When you're ready. Thank you. Well, we are Mariola and Gema, and we come from a project by the Andalusian government called Digital Commitment, and it has a volunteers network run by the Red Cross, and we are throughout the region of Andalusia. And my colleague will tell you about the details of our work, but I would like to say how we appreciate this event, because most of our target audience doesn't have specific or expert knowledge, and it's very interesting for us to give them feedback to motivate them when we tell them about the different choices they have with the ICTs, and they don't even know about it. So I'm really grateful for this event, and I give the floor to Mariola, my colleague. We started out in 2007 to build bridges towards people, from the new technologies towards people. The ICTs are moving forward every second, and if we do not provide the whole population with free information, they would lag behind. We want to empower people, improve their quality of life through technology, and the methodology is by using digital accompaniment with 1.5 hours training workshops delivered by a volunteer, and then we have training days on a specific issue to get into the details, and that can be protected. We are throughout Andalusia, and we do have a website. Yeah, you're right. Our website is www.andaluciacompromisodigital.org. You'll find all the information. You'll find the contact numbers for every province, and you'll have information on free online training courses. Thank you. Okay, let's take a picture of the counter speakers. These are next year's speakers if you want, Yolanda. And now we have a song. Can we play the song? It's a song on artificial intelligence. So if you watched Knight Rider when you were kids, you probably know it.
Vamos a unir la tecnología. Vamos. Otra familia, ¿no? Todos para acá. A la foto.